Make this new school year an opportunity for your kids to learn important life skills with Greenlight. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families where kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely, while parents keep an eye on kids' money habits. Greenlight also helps families get into their fall routine with a chores feature that lets parents assign chores and pay kids allowance when they check them off. Get your first month free at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Atheists, agnostics, long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government.
Welcome to The Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy. I'm Northern Kentucky University political scientist Michael Baranowski. Once again, as with the weekend show, I am not joined by, but taking a back seat to the two main hosts joining me on the left, right, is Justin Holmes. And then, of course, on the right, we have the defender of freedom, Jay Carson. Hey, guys, welcome back.
Thanks.
Good to be here.
Yeah. And so, we talked a little bit about economic stuff to close out the regular show, but that's where we wanted to pick up, right, with the more or less economic speech by Donald Trump.
Yeah. So, and Mike, I'll do that, but I will also will include the rival speech the following one by Kamala Harris. But I'll just preface this by not a good week to be a free trade, a free market kind of guy.
Yeah.
I may be the last of them. But on Wednesday, Donald Trump gave a speech in Asheville, North Carolina, on the economy, which he promised was going to be an intellectual speech. That's what he billed it as. In media reported as a wide-ranging speech. But Trump promised we're going to have 10 to 20% tariffs on foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years. That's an escalation over his prior suggestions of a 10% across-the-board tariff on imported goods. He also he played the Reagan card of "Are you better off?" Which I think is a good strategy. But then it sort of went downhill from there, in describing, when Kamala lays out her fake economic plans this week, it'll probably be a copy of my plan, because basically that's what she does. And then also sort of a lament over the price of bacon, where we talked a lot about, bacon and how Trump doesn't order bacon anymore because it's too expensive. And, again, in truth, bacon is up. And I would say I probably don't buy as much bacon as I did before, but, Trump could probably afford it. And then it, sort of went on to, Kamala Harris, she's not smart, she's not intelligent, and all that stuff, all of which may be true, but it wasn't really an economic speech. Kamala Harris, for her part, gave a speech Friday where she discussed her economic proposals, which would include what she called more aggressive regulation on prices, preventing price gouging. Her words, not mine. Also, a plan for housing to build some 300,000 more starter homes with subsidies to the home builders, and also the $25,000 down payment credit to first-time home buyers. So those are sort of the two competing economic visions that we had last week. And for my part, I'm not in love with either one of them. But I'll turn it over to Justin.
In full disclosure, I actually did buy bacon yesterday, although it was store brand, because that's.
I misspoke. I said 300,000 new housing units. Yeah, it's actually 3 million. So
3 million. Yes. That's a lot of houses.
It is.
Yeah.
In a country of what, 380 million?
300. I want to say 340 something million. I don't know. I don't have the population numbers in front of me. Now I'm curious.
30, 40, somewhere in there. But I think it's interesting to see, some competing vision here. I don't know with Trump that there's a lot new, to be honest. I mean, the tariff sizes change and whatnot, but, for the most part, when Trump talks economic stuff, I mean, and policy in general, there aren't many specifics. As you go through the speech, I mean, so much of this is, we're going to have this much growth and I'm going to end inflation. And,
he did say he was going to direct all of his cabinet officials to, on day one to combat inflation.
That'll probably do it.
So there you go.
there you have it.
He said he would. I will read this because it's sort of beautiful. He signed an executive order on his first day in the Oval Office, ordering cabinet secretaries and agency heads to work towards limiting inflation. So
okay,
there you go.
If somebody would just work on that, I think we could lick it. Yeah. So on some level, with Trump, I don't know that I have a lot to say. I mean, it's his kind of typical tariffs, cut down on regulations, et cetera. But there's not a whole lot there to really. There's not a lot to talk about, in terms of new. There was one line out of here that, gosh, if I were making ads for Democrats, I would jump all over. He basically has this aside. They wanted me to do a speech on the economy. They say it's the most important subject. I'm not sure it is. Which actually gets to something we're going to maybe talk about in a little bit, in terms of messaging discipline and things like that. But I would run that on repeat, if I were making, Democratic ads. I think it's a little more interesting to hear from Harris because, honestly, she has very little platform at this point, which
this was kind of the first policy statement. Yeah,
maybe not even probably. This is about the first. And I'm sort of two minds there. I mean, one is, hey, this is an unprecedented situation where, you're jumping into a campaign on short notice. On the other hand, she was the vice presidential presumptive nominee for a long time. And, you'd think she could just kind of rebrand some of the Biden stuff. So, it's interesting to hear, as far as the proposals that are there. The housing thing is potentially interesting. The one that gets all the press is the price gouging, which she seems to have actually walked back a little bit. She talked about it last night and was talking more in terms of antitrust. But, again, there's not a whole lot there to talk about just yet. I feel like, it's interesting to see anything, policy right now coming from her campaign. But in terms of kind of the specifics, again, there's not a lot to drill down into.
I thought on Trump's side of things, because I know we're going to talk more about Harris because it was more policy specifics. But on Trump's, some of the things are just, even he knows that he's just kind of just bullshitting, right? I mean, when he said something about, well, I'll be cutting energy prices in half in a year, or maybe 18 months, or even if I don't do that, you're going to say he cut them a lot, that kind of thing,
right.
or growth.
It's hard to disagree with that.
Yeah, or
a lot.
Or growth is going to be so large, we're going to pay off our debt. $35 trillion. That's going to happen with 10 to 20% tariffs and ending the tax on Social Security benefits, which would cost somewhere around $94 billion, I think. I mean, just crazy stuff. And I think that's just, Jay.
And again, and Mike, I will clarify, lest I be views assigned to me as a sort of classical liberal. I don't care for any of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just kind of, but that's just kind of typical Trump stuff. He says whatever he thinks people want to hear, essentially, his people want to hear. And those are all things like that. And a lot of that stuff, you just roll your eyes, basically. Right. But I'm also, this is just because this is the bonus show, so I can do the personal anecdotes and just sort of, what I'm thinking. But it's also one of these things that, the beginning of the political season sort of coincides with, expectations for football season. And as a Cleveland Browns fan, I sort of feel the same as, Donald Trump. It's sort of like I much as I would like to say, boy, I'm really psyched to get behind this team this year. This is our year. You just sort of beat your head against the wall. So that's what I'm being a Republican sort of feels like being a Cleveland Browns fan right now, and vice versa.
Storms are brewing. Crocs Echo Storm, that is. It's their most striking sneaker that is the perfect blend of form and function. From a sink-in soft feel to a seamless slip-on design, the Storm will help you build your streetwear style while supporting you wherever the day takes you. Plus, there are brand new colorways you won't want to miss. Shop Crocs Echo Storm on crocs.com today.
Whoa, landing an account this big will totally change my landscaping business. It's gonna mean hiring more guys and more equipment and new trucks for the new guys to drive the new equipment in. I don't know if I'm ready.
You can do this, and Ford Pro FinSimple can help. Our experts are ready to make growing pains less painful for your business with flexible financing solutions that meet the needs of your business today when you need them. Get started at fordpro.com/financing.
Well, but I think there are some issues certainly with what Harris has talked about in her speech. And you mentioned the price gouging thing. One thing I'll point out is that it's almost like a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist anymore. Because if you take a look at the latest stats, there's just a report that came out just, I think, last week saying that grocery prices in July were up around 1% from last year. And so grocery inflation was a short-term problem, certainly, or even a longer-term problem, but arguing that you need a policy solution to that. And also I'll point out that there are price gouging laws in something like 37 states. And so I think this is clearly just a pander to folks who are understandably concerned about that, because it's not like these prices, once the price of bacon goes up, it's not like it's going to come back down, right? And
exactly. That was the point I was going to make is yes, you can say it's not up that much year over year, but considering we've had 2 years of it increasing significantly, people still see those higher prices and will for some time.
Yeah. And so I think go ahead, Chilson, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the politics of this of kind of inflation are really interesting. Because exactly like Jay said, it makes it hard to campaign on this. You can say, hey, inflation is down, and it is, in the definitional economic sense. But prices aren't going to come back down. We don't get deflation. And we're seeing a little bit of price drops on groceries here and there. But, so it doesn't feel like it, and if you kind of run on that message of, hey, inflation's down, voters are going to look at that and say, no, they're not. Everything's more expensive, because, there's kind of a disconnect between how people understand that, understand inflation and economists understand inflation. But I think, this, and I don't think, that kind of the plan as was laid out, I don't think is a great plan. But I do think, when it comes to sort of policy making in the economic realm, it seems like inflation is more complicated in some ways than growth or recession. There are some fairly straightforward things that you can do, in a recession, you just throw money at it and, eventually it gets better. Inflation doesn't seem to have easy answers. The kinds of things that we tend to do, like raise interest rates and stuff like that, those don't feel good either. And so, I can see wanting to lay out a plan, and pandering, as you said, maybe isn't a bad term for it, because, hey, you want to look like you're doing something and people are upset about grocery inflation. It hits everybody, and whether you can, whether it pushes you over the edge economically or it's just an annoyance, it's there. Using personal anecdotes, I basically run on Diet Dr. Pepper, and it's like triple what it was a couple of years ago. I mean, this hits me harder than gas prices, in a lot of ways. I should do the math on that. I may actually go through more pop than
But I think that's a great point, is that's one of those prices that people just, it resonates because they see it all the time, whereas things that might be bigger, like home prices, that's more in the background, which is why I think her proposals about that sort of thing are actually more interesting, because I think there's no question that we have a shortage of homes in this country, which is a big problem, though I think it's good to try to figure out ways to deal with that. Now, if it were just a subsidy to first-time home buyers loan, I'd say, well, if you just do that alone, that would probably just raise the price of houses, right? And so, but I like the fact that that's combined with things like subsidies to to builders to build kind of smaller first time, houses, that sort of, and I think all that stuff is good and important. This is a really kind of difficult problem because it has to do with things like zoning laws and local ordinances and that sort of thing, and really requires a lot of coordination. Is a very difficult sort of problem, but something that I think really needs to be dealt with. And at least I'm glad to see some sort of proposal about that. I was curious, Jay, what you thought about that part of it, the housing part of things. We hope you enjoyed this preview of our supporters exclusive midweek show. If you'd like to hear the rest of the episode, we hope you'll consider becoming a supporter. Supporters get ad-free access to all of our shows, membership in our Politics Guys Discord group where you can join in on the conversation, and other benefits at different levels of support. To become a supporter, go to patreon.com/politicsguys. You can also support us through Venmo or @politicsguys or through PayPal. You'll find all of our support links in the show notes as well as at politicsguys.com/support. And if you'd like to get the midweek show, but you're not in a position to become a financial supporter, that's not a problem. Just send me an email at mike@politicsguys.com, and I'll be happy to get that set up for you.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group,